Hey everyone, what if I told you there might be a code for creation itself? I mean, a literal, logical code. Today we're going to connect the dots between pure mathematics and an ancient cosmological model to see if, maybe, just maybe, the universe is running on a kind of logical operating system.
So this is the big question we're diving into. Is there some kind of mathematical blueprint for how everything comes into being? I want you to set aside what you think you know for a bit, because the model we're about to explore suggests the answer could be a huge yes, and that it's been hiding in the simple logic of how things combined.
So on one hand, you've got combinatorics. That's the pure, cold logic of mathematical patterns, like building with blocks. And on the other hand, you have the Brahma Chakra, this ancient, grand idea about the entire cycle of creation and its fundamental forces. You know, they seem like they're from completely different worlds, right? But what if they're actually just two different languages describing the exact same thing?
All right, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the basics, the language of combinations, then we'll see how complexity gets built from the ground up. After that, we hit the really cool part, something called the mirroring principle that connects the math to the cosmos. And we'll wrap up by looking at the two big forces that make the whole system tick. Ready? Let's jump in.
Okay, so first things first. Everything in this entire system, and I mean everything, starts with the absolute basics, simple, fundamental building blocks, which this model just calls letters. Take a look at this chart. This is our blueprint for today. See how we start way down at the bottom with just single letters? A, B, C, D, E, simple. But as you move up, they combine into more and more complex groups, all the way to the top. The real question, of course, is, what are the rules that make it all happen? How does it work?
Well, the secret sauce here is a process called combinatorial partitioning. That sounds fancy, but all it really means is splitting bigger groups into smaller, unique sets. It's by controlling exactly how we split things up and then recombine them that we can uncover the hidden logic that builds all of this amazing complexity.
So how does the system actually generate all this complexity? It's definitely not random. There's a very specific and honestly a very elegant engine at work here that we're about to take a look at.
So the process really just has three simple steps. First, you start with your foundational pieces, all the possible pairs. Step 2, and this is the crucial one, you partition them. You sort them into those predefined buckets. And finally, you build the next level up by combining pairs, but, and here's the rule, only from within the same bucket. That disciplined, selective combination is what creates perfect order out of potential chaos.
Okay, let's look at our chart again, but this time with our new rules in mind. We're starting with 5 letters. As you can see in that first green row, the one labeled K equals 2, this gives us exactly 10 unique pairs. Now here's the partitioning in action. Instead of one big messy pile of 10, they're neatly sorted into 4 distinct subsets. See how there's 1 pair in the first box, 2 in the next, then 3, then 4? That sorting is the key.
And here's the part that's both counterintuitive and totally brilliant. If we just randomly combined those 10 pairs, we could make 45 different combinations, a total mess, right? But we only want 10 specific groups of 3. The genius of the system is that the limitation creates the perfect result. By just following that one rule, only combine pairs within the same subset, we get rid of all the noise and are left with the exact 10 building blocks for the next level. It's incredible.
Let's make this crystal clear so you can see it happen. Take the subset of pairs that start with C. In that little box, we've got CA and CB. Since they're in the same partition, the system says, yep, you two can combine. And together, they produce the unique 3-letter group CBA. We just repeat that simple process in each little subset, and that's how we methodically build all 10 of the groups you see in that orange row.
And from there, the process just repeats itself, climbing level by level. Those 10 groups of 3 we just made, they become the new building blocks. We partition them, combine them according to the rules, and they perfectly form the 5 groups of 4. Do it one more time, and those 5 combine to form that final single group at the very top of the pyramid, EDCBA. It's just a perfect, self-contained cascade of creation.
Now we're getting to what I think is the most mind-bending part of this whole model. This is the moment where the abstract math suddenly looks like a blueprint for the cosmos. This is the bridge between those two worlds we talked about.
So first, just look at this pattern in its purest form. It's just numbers. Those backslashes you see, they just show where groups are being split apart or differentiated. It's a clean, totally logical structure, okay? Now really try to hold that pattern in your mind for a second.
Because now, look at this. It is the exact same pattern.
But instead of just numbers, it's mapped onto the 5 fundamental factors, or Bhutas, from the Brahma Chakra cosmology. You got ethereal, aerial, luminous, liquid, and solid. The pure math perfectly mirrors the structure of this ancient cosmic model. It's kind of stunning.
And the source material gives us a perfect example of how this mirroring works. It all starts with the idea of two-ness. You create 2 distinct groups, and then you watch how that quality of 2 gets reflected or mirrored in the very next step of the process.
Let's trace this right here on the slide. So in column 2, you see the expression A/B. That just means we've split something into 2 separate groups. Now watch this. The system then mirrors that two-ness over in the next column. See that element AB? It's a single thing, but it's made of 2 letters. The number of groups in one step, which was 2, is directly reflected by the number of letters in an element in the next step. This is the first kind of mirroring, and it's super important.
But that's not the only way it works. The mirroring principle has another trick up its sleeve. It doesn't just mirror the number of groups into the number of letters, it can also mirror the number of groups into the number of elements in the next step.
So let's trace the second type of mirroring. Over in column 4, we have a partition into 3 distinct groups. You've got A, AB, and ABC. The system then takes that 3-ness and mirrors it. Look at the very next column. It creates a single group that contains, exactly, you guessed it, 3 elements. So the number of groups gets reflected again, but this time it says the number of elements in the group that comes next. The pattern holds. It's pretty amazing.
So, you might be wondering, where is all this abstract stuff going? Well, this is the moment where the system takes a leap from being just a cool pattern to becoming a proposed blueprint for the cosmos itself.
Okay, so according to this system, those numerical patterns we were just geeking out on, they aren't just abstract ideas. This table proposes a direct connection. Each row has a defining quality, its n-ness, and that's said to correspond to one of 5 fundamental cosmic factors, or Bhutas, an old term for the elements of creation. So oneness from row 1 defines the ethereal factor, two-ness from row 2 defines the aerial factor, and on and on. The idea here is that the abstract numerical quality literally becomes the physical quality of that factor.
So what does it actually mean for, say, the liquid factor to have the quality of 4-ness? It means its very essence, its nature, is defined by having a 25% contribution from 4 underlying components. And that quality was locked in by that exact mirroring process we just saw. It's like a quantitative blueprint for reality itself.
That final solid factor, the stuff that represents prime matter, it's actually composed of all 5 of the elements that came before it. And as you can see right here, each one contributes an equal 20% share, giving it this inherent quality of 5-ness.
All right, let's talk about something huge, something really fundamental. We're going to explore the 2 forces that literally take an idea, just a pure concept, and turn it into the actual stuff that makes up our reality.
I mean, have you ever really thought about that? How does the pure idea of something, like a tree or a horse, become a physical, tangible thing you can actually see and touch? Well, believe it or not, there's a process for that, and that's exactly what we're going to unpack today.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the 2 big engines behind creation. Then, we'll see how one of those engines just explodes an idea into endless variety, and how the other one comes along and pulls all that chaos back together into one thing. And finally, and this is the really cool part, we'll see how that very process forges what we call prime matter.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Everything in creation, and I mean everything, is driven by these 2 fundamental forces. You can think of them like a cosmic push and pull, constantly working together, but also against each other to literally build the world around us.
And these forces have names: differentiation and integration. Differentiation is what's called a centrifugal force. It's pushing outward, right? It's all about creating more and more variety. And then you have integration, which is a centripetal force. It's pulling inward, creating unity. So one force explodes everything out into pieces, and the other pulls all those pieces back into a whole. Now, this chart you're seeing here, this is basically our map for the whole journey. It's called a color-coded combinatorial array in the source material. And yeah, it looks a little complicated at first glance, I get it. But don't worry, we're going to walk through it step by step, and it's going to make perfect sense. So let's zoom in on that first force, that exploding outward one, differentiation. This is step 1 in creation.
It's where a single, pure, perfect idea starts to shatter into a gazillion different, unique possibilities. The source material has a specific name for this, calling it centrifugal progression. And what it is, it's the process where a perfect, abstract concept, what a philosopher like Plato would call an ideal form, starts to actually show up in the real world as countless different individual examples. And to really get a handle on just how powerful this force is, the source uses this amazing metaphor about horses. It says, this process creates so many unique variations, and I'm quoting here, unique horses of a different color that you would not be able to tell are relatable. Think about that. So much variety you wouldn't even know they came from the same original idea. And if we go back to our map here, you can literally see it happening. See that arrow labeled centrifugal? It's pointing from that single unified block of color on the left all the way over to that super complex, diverse pattern on the right. That visual journey from left to right, that is differentiation in action. Okay, but you can't build a world out of just pure, unrelated chaos, right? It would just be a mess. So creation needs that second force, the opposite one, to pull everything back together. And that, my friends, is integration. This is the pulling inward force that finds the unity hidden inside all that crazy diversity. And yep, you guessed it, the source has a name for this one too. Centripetal progression. This is the process where our perception, our mind, takes all those separate, scattered observations and realizes they all belong to one single thing. It's about seeing all the parts and recognizing the whole. So let's bring back our horse. You might see one of those horses of a different color from the front, then from the side. You see it in the morning light, you see it in the evening. Integration is the magic in your brain that takes all those different views and goes, aha, these are all just different snapshots of the exact same horse. On our charts, integration is the journey back home. You see the centripetal label on the right? That signals a movement from all that complex variety back toward that unified solid whole on the left. It's the force that takes chaos and turns it back into a single, cohesive thing. So you've got differentiation pushing out and integration pulling back in. When this cosmic tug-of-war completes its very first cycle, well, that's when something absolutely incredible happens. This is the moment the actual foundation of physical existence gets created. So let's be really clear. It's this two-step dance that's so crucial. First, the pure idea shatters into a million different instances. Then, all those instances get pulled back together and recognized as one single object. And this is the whole point. Here's the big reveal. The source tells us that the result of this first cycle, these newly identified objects, and I'm quoting, express as the solid factor and prime matter of creation. This is it. This is the raw stuff, the Bhutas, the basic fundamental material of our entire universe. Let's just run through that one last time. Super simple. You start with an abstract idea, like horse. That idea differentiates into tons of variety, horses of a different color. Then all that variety is integrated into one recognizable object. We see one horse. And the end result of that process? Boom! Prime matter is formed, the very substance of reality. Now, the source does add one final, really fascinating detail. It says that while this cycle creates the raw stuff, what that stuff can do, its potential, how it connects with other things, that gets shaped by other non-physical factors. But, that's a whole other can of worms for another explainer. So I'll leave you with this to chew on. If this fundamental cycle, this push and pull between exploding into variety and then unifying back into a whole, is how physical matter itself is born, where else do you see that same pattern playing out in the world? In art? In society? Maybe even your own thoughts? It kind of seems like the two forces that build reality might just be building everything else too.